I arrived this morning before the snow. I got to miss that completely. And as I was coming up to the door to unlock the door, I remembered saying to myself, how did it get to be Palm Sunday again? Didn't we just do this last year? But when I'm looking at that text, when I'm listening to it, when I'm hearing it sort of pour over me, I'm struck by how deeply rich this narrative is. In fact, it's become more and more popular, apropos of our sermon, to follow the fact that most of us aren't willing to come to church 4 or 5 times in a single week, to turn Palm Sunday into Palm Passion Sunday, in which we take all the events of the week from this Sunday through next Saturday, and we cram them into this 1 hour so that we're prepared for Easter next week. And I'm thinking, I don't even know if I can get through the material of this Sunday alone, let alone try to do justice to the whole journey, which is why we won't. And I'm telling you, you have to come back. But this text is partly so deep because everyone has a different understanding of what is actually happening. That beautiful aside from Jesus, where Jesus pulls himself out of the narrative for a moment to say his lament for Jerusalem. To call Jerusalem, in a different gospel text, he actually says, Jerusalem, Jerusalem. Just like last week we said, Martha, Martha. Call them out of their worry and concern to recognize who they are for a moment. If only today you had understood what was going on. If you had understood what makes for peace. And then Jesus is pulled back into this narrative. We can probably do, in which we do disjustice or injustice to the Pharisees, who are honestly you and me most of the time, right? They're just trying to do their best to be people in faith in a world that doesn't invite people to be people of faith, right? Understand that Israel is coming out of something like 300 years, or in the midst of 300 years of either Greek or Roman occupation. And there are no empires as great as Greeks and Romans at turning you into them, right? As vaunted a status as it was to be a Roman citizen, anyone could become a Roman citizen. You remember the movie Ratatouille? Like, anyone can cook. Anyone could be a citizen of Rome. Even a Palestinian Jew on the hinterlands of the empire Anyone could have become Hellenized and part of the more evolved intellectual elite of Greek empire. The temptations to submit to the larger culture of these empires was greater than any other day. You didn't have to act like a conquered people. They wanted to give you the fruits of their empire if you would just look, act, and speak like us. And the Jews are just so darn stubborn. They wouldn't do that. And the Pharisees are just caught in the middle of it all, trying to keep their people from being slaughtered by these efficiently violent occupiers, and say, hold on to a little of your Judaism, but give Rome a little what Rome wants. And most of all, shh. If we aren't very loud, they won't check us out. Calm them down. Get them shouting not so loud. And Jesus, being Jesus, who never walked when he could stomp, said, if they did, even the stones would shout. So Jesus is in this conflict with the Pharisees for sure, but it's an internal conflict, right? They're both after the same thing. The Pharisees, however, like those pastors in Birmingham asking Martin Luther King to slow down and quiet down, just want to play the compromising game. But on the other side of the spectrum, Jesus isn't in step with the crowds either, right? In fact, no one does better justice to this than the Gospel according to Andrew Lloyd Webber. Which is why, watching Jesus Christ Superstar is mandatory for us in our family every year. Because there's this moment in the Palm Sunday narrative where he has the character of Simon the Zealot, who the Zealots don't even exist yet. That's an homage to the future, if it's a correct translation of his name. The Zealots are going to be the people who choose to do war with Rome and get it surrounded and sacked and destroyed, Jerusalem. So this homage, when Jesus says, if you knew what made for peace, but I tell you in the days to come, people will set up ramparts around you and they will destroy you. That's the Jewish war in 63 created by the Zealots' desire to do war with Rome. And Andrew Lloyd Webber puts in Simon's mouth during this Palm Sunday narrative to Jesus, he says, this is great. We've got the crowds all behind us. Now add a touch of hate at Rome, and we're going to get where we want to go. And Jesus says to him, you do not understand what power is. Jesus is walking an incredibly lonely road because he disagrees with all of the factions of his own people. Forget a contest with Rome for a moment. Jesus is telling the people on his conservative right, stop being so quiet. And he's telling the people on his pushy left, stop thinking that we need to do violence to get what we want. Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, if only today you saw what makes for peace. Jesus is caught in this moment where he's got both sides saying to him, yes, but. Yes, but ramp it up. Yes, but calm it down. Right? And it's really, really hard to walk that road and say, yes, and I'm going to keep doing it my way. It is so tempting to give in. I'm a great giver in, who says, okay, let's figure out how to compromise between these two sets of desires. When I look for myself in this story, I am the Pharisees. Jesus sets out on this road. We were there 6 weeks ago in Luke 9. It says Jesus set his eyes to Jerusalem. He set his eyes on the cross. He set his eyes on where he knew this journey was going. And he kept telling people where it was going, and they kept not listening. Right? This is going to lead to my death. The things I am talking about seem nice and gentle, but they are so upsetting to the system that they'll kill me for it. But even more importantly, but it's so important, I'm willing to die for this. Right? In every moment we get in these moments where we see an opportunity to fight, or we see an opportunity to flee and compromise. And Jesus keeps saying, no, I won't compromise, but I won't fight either. I like to call this, in my personal ethic, Jesus constantly calls himself to be the adult in the room. Because you could see this, can't you, almost like a grocery store, right? And there are a bunch of kids having a meltdown on aisle 14 because mom won't let us get Jell-O today, right? And in that moment, you kind of do one thing or the other. Either you capitulate and you compromise and you say, okay, you can have the Jell-O, but nothing else, right? And when you get to aisle 28 and they want ice cream, you say, well, then we have to put the Jell-O back, right? But you still gave them ice cream or Jell-O, and I don't blame people for that. That's totally me. Okay, you get to pick out one thing. In fact, Caroline always says, I don't think she sends me to the grocery store anymore because I always come back with things I'm not supposed to have because I'm a compromiser, right? Or you throw the kids in the cart and you tear out of there as quickly as you can to get out of the place of temptation, right? Jesus almost chooses to saunter as if he's going to make us linger in this place of tension. Jesus is going to give in to all these pieces of the story that feel like messianic hope and then not give us any of the things we thought the messianic hope would give us, which was another Davidic conqueror to destroy Rome, to be better at roaming than Rome is. And Jesus says we're not getting peace until we give up trying to be Rome, until we give up trying to be violent to get what we want. It doesn't make for peace, it just makes for more violence. But we also aren't going to give up on what we want. Right? We're not going to compromise God's dream for the world. We're going to keep naming that people deserve to have housing, that people deserve to be fed and clothed, that people deserve to be treated with the same equity that they treat the people of power and wealth. We're not going to give up on any of that, but we're not going to kill people to get it either. And it's hard to get that now, right? So I want to show you an Easter egg that happened in this sermon series. It was so subtle, nobody will have picked up on it. But there were two sermon titles that say, I want it all. And then today's sermon teaser is I want it now. Because when I started writing the sermon series, the Queen song came in my head. I want it all, and I want it now. Right? The problem, the reversion to violence becomes when we don't just want it all, but we want it all now. Right? And it's so hard. And we're conflicted about it. Which is why we got wrapped up in the drama that happened at the Academy Awards a couple weeks ago when Chris Rock cracked a joke at Will Smith's wife, Jada, and Will laughed at it and then saw that she didn't find it funny. And then in an embarrassment of guilt, he got up and hit Chris Rock. I feel that pain because I think I would have done it too. And then I would have told myself I was right and then I was so wrong that we'll never have a conversation about what I was right about. I failed to be the adult in the room because I wanted it now. And I operated out of guilt and with a rush to get it all now. And I see that in myself and I felt that in that moment. that Will got up there and slapped him, and I said to myself, ooh, I think I would have done it too. And then I would have known it was wrong. It's so easy. To judge Will Smith for doing that now, and to be Will Smith doing that then, because we've been doing it forever. It's not so easy to be Jesus standing in front of the crowds chanting, "Let's take on Rome," and standing in front of the temple authorities saying, "Shh, be quiet, be more palatable to Rome," and say, "I'm not going to please either of you." We have a vision we're working towards, a vision of a peaceable kingdom. And you can't bring that in a rush, and you can't bring it in with violence. But you also can't bring it in by overly compromising with the powers that be who have been using violence and dominance to get their way for generation after generation after generation. You have to walk that middle way. And all this is coming together in the middle of a day in which we just want to wave palm branches and not poke anybody's eye out. And Jesus is going to walk that journey for us year after year. Andrew will come to that door at 6 a.m. every year and say, "Oh, here we are, Palm Sunday again." Because we need that repetition to remind us that we're trying not to allow ourselves to get caught up in the energy and the excitement of the crowd, or to capitulate to the powers that be, but constantly walk this way that is a way of peace. Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, in his book, To Heal a Fractured World, talks about that, about ways of peace, right? What are ways of peace? And one of them is being able to walk into that tension and to say, it's worth losing my life to demonstrate the importance of your life. It is worth setting aside the tools of violence and power to demonstrate to us that will never solve the problem in the long term. And to make that of ultimate concern, before which all other things are trivial and trite. And so on Easter, when we celebrate that, if we celebrate that without the recognition of washing feet on Thursday and breaking bread, which is Jesus' body, if we celebrate that without the tensions of Peter trying to figure out, is it worth dying in this moment, or do I compromise? And then, I regret the decision I made. If we celebrate that without really entering the tomb, all we celebrate is fancy flowers and fine music. Jesus walked in to the depth of what it meant to be human, and he embodied the depth of what it meant to be divine in that place, to love one another as I love you, to recognize that all I have to give is my life, and I will. When the rubber meets the road, I will. That is worth dying for. But today we're just going to walk into Jerusalem, because that journey is yet to come. And the crowds will shout, and the leaders will grumble, and Rome will watch from afar, while Jesus weeps that we would stop and pay attention and learn the ways that lead to peace. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.